The silent invasion. Captain Alina Reyes stood at the observation deck of Frontier Station Epsilon, her eyes fixed on the endless expanse of stars before her. 20 years in the Earth Space Force hadn't prepared her for command of humanity's farthest outpost, yet here she stood, responsible for the lives of 300 crew members and the security of Earth's outer territories. "Captain, you need to see this." Lieutenant Kai Chen's voice broke through her thoughts. His usual calm demeanor was replaced with barely concealed anxiety. Alina followed him to the sensor bay where holographic displays showed a strange anomaly at the edge of their scanning range. "What am I looking at, Lieutenant?" "That's just it, Captain. We don't know." Chen manipulated the controls, enhancing the image. It appeared 3 hours ago. No mass readings, no energy signature, but it's disrupting subspace somehow. Alina leaned closer. The anomaly resembled a ripple in the fabric of space, almost invisible except for subtle distortions in the starlight behind it. "Have you compared it to known phenomena?" "Yes, Mom. Nothing in our databases matches it." Something cold settled in Alina's stomach. Humanity had only been exploring beyond their solar system for a century, a mere infant in galactic terms. The few alien species they had encountered were either primitive or kept their distance. This was different. "Alert status yellow. I want continuous monitoring," and the station's alarms blared to life. Red emergency lights bathed the room. "Multiple vessels appearing, Captain." The tactical officer's voice was tight with stress. There, they just appeared out of nowhere. No hyperspace signature, no warp bubble collapse. On the main screen, 12 obsidian ships materialized like ghosts from the void. Their design was unlike anything in human records, organic curves blending with geometric precision, surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. Alina straightened her uniform. On screen, the being that appeared was humanoid in basic shape only. Its skin was pale blue with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move. Eyes like liquid mercury regarded Alina without blinking. "We are the Veil Collective." The voice was melodious yet emotionless. "Your presence has been noted. Your expansion ends now." Alina kept her voice steady. "This is Captain Alina Reyes of Earth Space Force. You've entered human territory without authorization. State your intentions." The being tilted its head slightly. "Intentions? How quaint. We do not have intentions. We have certainties. Your species will submit or be erased. This is not negotiable." The transmission cut abruptly. The alien vessels remained motionless. "Captain, they're scanning us," Chen reported. "Our systems are being accessed despite firewalls. They're downloading everything." Within minutes, the alien ships vanished as mysteriously as they had appeared, leaving the station's crew in stunned silence. 3 days later, Alina stood before the Emergency Council on Earth. Her report met with skepticism and fear. These Veil Collective beings made threats but took no hostile action. Admiral Winters frowned. "And they simply left?" "Yes, sir. But before they did, they extracted terabytes of data from our systems. They know everything about us now. Our colonies, defenses, technologies." Defense Minister Lyon shook her head. "One encounter is hardly evidence of an invasion." "With respect, Minister, it wasn't just Epsilon." Alina displayed a holographic map showing the frontier of human space. Red markers appeared on 17 different locations. In the past week, 17 outposts and research stations have gone silent. No distress calls, no debris fields. They simply vanished. The room fell silent. "We've received a message from the Arcturian Commonwealth," a diplomatic officer added quietly. "They've encountered these beings before. The Arcturians call them the Silencers." The main screen displayed the ancient, tree-like Arcturian ambassador. "Humans of Earth, we warn you as friends. The beings you call the Veil Collective have existed for millennia. They do not conquer. They assimilate. They do not negotiate. They consume. 43 species have faced them before you. None have successfully resisted. Elena watched the council members' faces pale as the Arcturian continued. They begin by studying their prey, learning vulnerabilities. Then they isolate colonies and outposts, making them disappear. Fear spreads. Societies fracture from within. By the time their main forces arrive, most species are already defeated in spirit. Admiral Winters leaned forward. And what happened to those 43 species? 3 submitted immediately and exist now as servant races. 11 fought and were completely eradicated. The rest. The Arcturian ambassador's branches trembled. The rest became part of the collective. Their bodies and minds reconstructed to serve the Veil's purpose. The meeting lasted for hours as strategies were debated. Some advocated immediate military response. Others suggested diplomacy. A few even proposed surrender to save lives. Elena listened silently until called upon. Captain Rice, you've encountered them directly. What's your assessment? She stood, addressing the room with quiet conviction. They expect us to react like every species before us, with either immediate capitulation or disorganized resistance. But humanity has something the others might have lacked. And what's that? Minister Liang asked. Stubbornness, Mom. A few nervous chuckles broke the tension. And adaptability. We've spent our entire history fighting against overwhelming odds. Against nature, against each other, against extinction. It's in our DNA. 2 weeks later, Elena found herself commanding not just a station, but an entire defensive fleet assembled at the edge of the Sol system. Earth's factories had been working around the clock, converting civilian ships into military vessels and producing weapons designed based on data from the brief encounter. Captain, Lieutenant Chen approached, holding a datapad. We've analyzed the sensor readings from our encounter. There's something odd about their technology. Elena reviewed the findings, her eyes widening. They're using some kind of quantum entanglement for communications and propulsion, but it has a specific frequency pattern. Yes, Mom. And if we can identify the pattern, we might be able to disrupt it. Elena felt the first stirrings of hope. Get me Admiral Winters immediately. Within days, quantum disruptors were being fitted to every ship in the fleet. They weren't weapons in the traditional sense, but they might give humanity a fighting chance against an enemy that had never known defeat. The waiting ended on a Tuesday. Veil ships appeared simultaneously near Mars, Europa, and Earth itself. Hundreds of them, their obsidian hulls blotting out the stars. The transmission was broadcast on all frequencies. Humans, your assessment period is complete. You have been found wanting. Submit to collection or face extinction. Admiral Winters stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, Elena at his side. You know, he said quietly, throughout history, bullies have always made the same mistake. What's that, sir? They mistake patience for weakness and preparation for fear. He nodded to the communications officer. Send our response. Elena watched as humanity's message was transmitted, not words, but action. Across the solar system, quantum disruptors activated simultaneously, creating a cascading interference pattern precisely calibrated to the Veil's technology. The effect was immediate. The alien ships didn't explode or crash. They simply stopped, frozen in space as their systems failed. All ships, execute Operation Lighthouse, Winters commanded. The human fleet moved with precision, surrounding the disabled Veil vessels. Specialized teams prepared for boarding actions while others established defensive perimeters. As Elena led her strike team toward the nearest Veil ship, she reflected on the Arcturian ambassador's words. 43 species had faced the collective before. All had either submitted or been destroyed. Humanity would forge a different path. The boarding was met with minimal resistance. The Veil beings, so confident in their technological superiority, had never anticipated their systems could be compromised. Elena's team moved through corridors that seemed to pulse with organic technology, securing sections and gathering intelligence. In the ship's central chamber, they found the answer to the mystery of the disappeared colonies. Thousands of stasis pods lined the walls, each containing a human from one of the missing outposts, alive but unconscious, connected to the ship's systems through neural interfaces. They're not killing us, Alina realized aloud. They're harvesting us. Our bodies, our minds, our creativity. Further exploration revealed the truth behind the Veil Collective's power. They weren't conquerors in the traditional sense. They were collectors, assimilating the strengths of other species to enhance their own capabilities. The fear they instilled wasn't just a tactic, it was a resource they fed upon, literally converting the biochemical markers of terror into energy. That's why they announced themselves first, Alina told Admiral Winters during their debriefing. Why they make threats before attacking. They want us afraid. They need us afraid. Winters nodded grimly. And that's exactly what we can use against them. As the first wave of the conflict ended with the capture of 37 Veil ships, humanity prepared for the inevitable counterattack. But for the first time in thousands of years, the Veil Collective faced an enemy that refused to be cowed by fear. The real war was just beginning, but humanity had already achieved what 43 other species could not. They had drawn first blood against the galaxy's oldest predator. Humanity's defiance. The captured Veil ships became humanity's most valuable resource. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to understand the alien technology, while medical teams focused on freeing the thousands of human captives from their neural connections without causing permanent damage. Captain Alina Reyes stood in the makeshift research facility on Mars, watching as Dr. Amara Okafor carefully manipulated a fragment of Veil technology. The material seemed to shift between solid and liquid states, responding to the doctor's thoughts more than her tools. It's incredible, Amara said, not looking up from her work. Their technology isn't just advanced, it's fundamentally different. They don't build machines, they grow them. Can we replicate it? Alina asked. Not exactly, but we can understand it. Amara straightened, wiping sweat from her brow. The Veil ships aren't just vessels. They're extensions of the collective consciousness. That's why our quantum disruptors were so effective. We essentially gave their nervous system a seizure. Will they adapt? Eventually. They're already adjusting their frequencies. But now we know their weakness. Amara displayed a holographic model of a Veil being's neural structure. They're telepathically linked to each other and their technology. It makes them incredibly coordinated, but also vulnerable to feedback loops. Alina studied the model. So if we can disrupt the link, we can do more than disable their ships. We might be able to sever their connection to the collective itself. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert. Admiral Winters appeared on the communication screen, his expression grim. Captain Rice, we've detected a massive Veil fleet approaching from the Kuiper Belt. Over 300 ships, including a vessel at least 10 times larger than anything we've encountered so far. Alina felt her heart sink. Despite their initial success, humanity was still outmatched in terms of numbers and raw power. Our quantum disruptors. Engineering teams are adjusting them to counter the Veil's adaptations, but we don't know if they'll be effective against such a large force. Winters hesitated. The Security Council is considering our options, including the Threshold Protocol. Alina knew what that meant. Earth's most powerful weapons, antimatter bombs capable of destroying entire moons, would be deployed. It might stop the Veil advance, but at a terrible cost to the solar system's stability. Sir, I have another proposal. Alina outlined a daring plan based on Dr. Okafor's findings. Instead of trying to match the Veil's firepower, they would target the central consciousness controlling the fleet. A small team would infiltrate the massive command ship, what they now called a Nexus, and deploy a specially designed neural disruptor at its core. That's a suicide mission, Captain, Winters said quietly. Maybe, sir, but it gives us a chance to end this without destroying half our system. After hours of debate, the plan was approved. Alina would lead a team of 12 specialists aboard a modified Veil scout ship they had captured and reprogrammed. Using the enemy's own recognition signals, they hoped to approach undetected. The morning of the mission, Lieutenant Chen found Alina in the ship's preparation area, checking her gear one final time. "Permission to speak freely, Captain." Alina nodded, recognizing the concern in her friend's eyes. "Are we doing the right thing?" The Arcturians said no one has ever defeated the Veil. Maybe there's a reason. Alina considered this. The Arcturians also said the Veil have been doing this for millennia. Kai, how many civilizations have they consumed? How many more will they take if no one stops them? Chen nodded slowly. I want you to come back. We all do. That's the plan. Alina managed to smile. Besides, I still owe you a rematch at Zero Chess. The journey to the approaching Veil fleet was tense, but uneventful. Their disguised ship, piloted by Lieutenant Commander Rosa Martins, the best pilot in the fleet, slipped past the outer defensive screen of Veil vessels. "They're not even scanning us," Martins whispered, as if the enemy might hear. "They're that confident." Alina watched the massive Nexus grow larger on their view screen. Unlike the smaller Veil ships, which were uniformly obsidian, the Nexus pulsed with internal light that shifted through colors impossible to properly name. "It's alive," Dr. Okafor breathed, her instruments recording everything. "The entire ship is a biological entity." Following the plan, they approached a section identified as a maintenance access point. Once docked, they would have approximately 40 minutes to reach the central consciousness chamber, plant the disruptor, and escape before the device activated. The docking went smoothly, too smoothly. As the team prepared to board, Alina felt a prickling sensation at the base of her skull. "Something's wrong," she said, holding up her hand to stop the team. "They're waiting for us." Before anyone could respond, the ship's systems shut down simultaneously. The emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the worried faces of her team. "Captain," Dr. Okafor's voice shook slightly, "I'm detecting a telepathic probe attempting to access our minds." Alina felt it too, a cold, alien presence slithering through her thoughts. She recalled their intelligence briefings. The Veil could extract information directly from their victim's consciousness. "Everyone, activate your neural shields." Each team member pressed a small device behind their ear, experimental technology based on their study of Veil prisoners. The invasive presence receded, but Alina knew they had lost the element of surprise. Change of plans. "Martinez, Okafor, Chen, you're with me. The rest of you, prepare the ship for immediate departure on my signal." The 4 officers entered the Nexus through the airlock, weapons ready. The interior was unlike any spacecraft Alina had seen. Corridors that seemed to breathe, surfaces that reacted to their presence with subtle changes in color and texture. "It's trying to analyze us," Okafor whispered, consulting her scanner. "The entire ship is aware." They encountered no Veil beings as they moved deeper into the vessel, following Okafor's readings toward the central chamber. The absence of resistance was more unnerving than an attack would have been. "They're toying with us," Martins muttered. When they finally reached the central chamber, they understood why. In the vast spherical room, suspended in a column of shimmering energy, floated not a Veil being but a human woman. "Welcome, Captain Reyes." The woman's voice echoed strangely, as if multiple voices spoke in unison. "We have been expecting you." Alina approached cautiously, signaling her team to spread out. "Who are you?" "I was once Dr. Eliza Tanner, cynobiologist from Europa Research Station." The woman's eyes opened, revealing irises filled with the same mercurial substance as the Veil beings. "Now I am the interface, the bridge between humanity and the collective." "You're helping them?" Chen asked, incredulous. "I am showing them humanity's true potential." The interface smiled. "The Veil do not destroy, Captain. They elevate. Through them, thousands of species live on, contributing to a greater whole." Alina activated her neural scanner covertly. The readings confirmed her suspicion. Dr. Tanner's consciousness had been completely rewritten. What remained was a puppet for the collective. If that were true, Elena countered, you wouldn't need to abduct people against their will. Real elevation doesn't require force. Such limited thinking. The interface sighed. Individual will is an illusion. The collective shows species their true purpose. As they spoke, Elena observed Martinez carefully placing specialized charges around the chamber, not explosives, but quantum field generators designed to create a temporary pocket of isolated spacetime. And what is humanity's purpose in your view? Elena asked, heaping the interface's attention. Your species possesses remarkable adaptability. Your minds create connections others cannot see. Your emotions generate energy patterns of unprecedented potency. The interface's expression became almost reverent. You will be the collective's greatest acquisition. That's where you're wrong. Elena activated her neural shield to maximum power. Humans don't get acquired. We don't submit. And we definitely don't surrender. Martinez gave the signal. The charges were ready. Dr. Okafor had located the biological-mechanical nexus point that connected the interface to the ship's systems. Now, Elena commanded. The team acted with practiced precision. Chen launched a neural scrambler that temporarily disoriented the interface, while Okafor injected the nexus point with a specially designed virus, not a conventional computer virus, but a biological agent that would spread through the Veil's organic technology. What have you done? The interface's voice distorted, fluctuating between Dr. Tanner's human tones and the collective Veil consciousness. This is impossible. That's humanity's specialty, Elena replied as Martinez activated the quantum charges, creating a field that isolated the chamber from the rest of the ship. We do the impossible pretty regularly. The virus worked faster than they had anticipated. The organic components of the chamber began to pulse erratically as the infection spread. The energy column holding the interface flickered and failed, dropping the human form to the floor. Elena approached cautiously. For a moment, clarity returned to the woman's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice her own again. They've never known fear before. Now they do. The ship around them shuddered violently. Their isolation field wouldn't last much longer. "We need to go," Chen urged, helping Elena to her feet. "The virus?" Elena asked Okafor as they retreated toward their ship. "Spreading exponentially through their network. It's not destroying them. It's doing something more poetic." Okafor couldn't hide a grim smile. "It's teaching the collective what it feels like to be afraid." They barely made it back to their vessel before the Nexus began to convulse. As Martins piloted them away at maximum speed, they watched through view screens as the massive ship's coordinated movements became erratic. Throughout the Veil fleet, ships began to drift out of formation, some colliding with others, some powering down completely. "It's working," Chen breathed, watching the sensor readings. "The virus is breaking their telepathic network." Admiral Winter's voice came through their communication system. "Captain Rice, whatever you did is affecting their entire fleet. Their ships are losing cohesion. Now's our chance." The human fleet launched its coordinated attack. Without their hive mind coordination, the individually powerful Veil ships were no match for human tactics. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia found themselves outmaneuvered by pilots who had trained their entire lives to think independently and adapt to rapidly changing situations. 3 days later, Elena stood again before the Earth Security Council, this time to deliver a very different report. The Veil Collective has retreated beyond the Kuiper Belt. Over 60 of their ships were captured intact, and we've already begun the process of freeing the beings held captive within them. "Beings?" Minister Lang asked. "Yes, Minister. We've discovered that many of the Veil aren't a natural species at all, but constructed entities built around the assimilated consciousness of conquered races. With the control network disrupted, they're beginning to recover their original identities." Admiral Winters leaned forward. "And what of the Central Intelligence? this collective itself. Still out there, but fundamentally changed. Elena displayed readings from their long-range sensors. The virus we introduced didn't just disrupt their network, it altered how they process information. For the first time in their existence, they know uncertainty. They know doubt. They know fear, a councilman added. Yes, the very thing they use to control others is now part of their own consciousness. In the months that followed, humanity's standing in the galaxy transformed. Species that had hidden from the veil for generations now sought alliance with Earth. The Arcturians, initially skeptical, became humanity's strongest supporters, helping to establish a coalition dedicated to liberating worlds still under veil influence. Elena found herself promoted to admiral, commanding the joint human-alien fleet tasked with exploring the regions of space formerly controlled by the collective. During one such mission, they encountered a damaged Veil scout ship drifting near an abandoned colony world. Inside, they found a single Veil being, its mercurial eyes clouded, its patterns faded. "You have destroyed us," it said when Elena approached. "No," she corrected. "We've freed you. The beings who make up your collective can now choose their own path. Choice brings chaos. Chaos brings fear." "Fear isn't always the enemy," Elena replied. "Sometimes it teaches us our limitations. Sometimes it shows us where we need to grow." The being studied her with newfound curiosity. "Humans embrace fear. We acknowledge it. We feel it. But we don't let it control us." Elena offered her hand in a universal gesture of peace. "That's the difference between us." As the liberation continued across the galaxy, species began to emerge from hiding, reclaiming worlds they had abandoned generations ago. The knowledge extracted from Veil technology accelerated scientific advancement across dozens of civilizations. A new era of cooperation replaced millennia of terror. In the heart of what had once been Veil space, a monument was erected, not to celebrate victory, but to commemorate transformation. At its center stood a simple holographic display showing the faces of beings from every species that had been part of the collective, now free to forge their own destinies. The inscription read, "They lived in fear until someone taught them how to hope." Humanity had not merely survived the galaxy's greatest predator, they had changed it forever.